Welcome to the Made for Money podcast, where feminine wisdom meets financial power. I'm your host, Christine Walsh, financial strategist for women entrepreneurs, fractional CFO, speaker, and author of the best-selling book, Be the Queen of Your Money, and guide for women who are rewriting their money stories and unapologetically rising into their wealth. Let's do this. Today on Made for Money, why I left investment banking to teach feminine financial strategy. Well, hello and welcome back to Made for Money. I'm so glad you're back. And my story of why I'm made for money is where we're going today. I've been asked so many times, what is your first memory of money? You probably have too if you've done some money work. And that is where my money story begins. My first memory of money that had an impact on my life, or at least I recognized that money was a thing, was at the Castle Hill Beach Club. My family and I belonged there every summer. It was in the Bronx. I grew up in New York City, which I'll get into a little bit. And it was where my parents actually went to when they were kids. When we were kids, that was something that they chose to give us the experience of. And it was where my brother and I, after, school, 9 months of school, were able to really let loose and run the pool club. And there was swim and arts and crafts and summer and ease. Really what I think of summer is still, this idea of carefreeness. Even though I don't have kids, there is this energetic of the summer that is just about carefree, like throwing the books up in the school books up into the air and going to the pool. That's what we did. And I don't know what summer it was. I was about 7 and my brother Jerry was probably about 5 or so. And we found out that we were not going to attend the pool club. And of course, as a 7-year-old, the way I digested that was like we didn't have the money. And it was the first time that I recognized that money was a thing, like that how that impacted me, right? From going to having these impactful summers and with friends, and I had cousins who were there, to going to not going. And I found out years later, like 40 years later, that the choice to not to go to the pool club was not because of money. But of course, my 7-year-old self at the time said to myself, we're poor, and that having fun was expensive, I guess. It was pricey, would be cut back if we didn't have money. And it was the moment when money made a difference in my life all of a sudden in such a tender age, right? And so many of our money stories start there. And yet the money stories continue and continue. And often as I look back on my history of money and money stories, I often think back to that the story started a little later, perhaps. And as I shared, I grew up in New York City, Queens, and we would cross a bridge to go to the pool, over to the Bronx and then back again. And I remember being groomed, if you will, to go to business school. I remember in high school, I was choosing colleges, and I remember telling my mom I wanted to go to the Fashion Institute of Technology and become a merchandiser and a buyer and work at Bloomingdale's and be a buyer for them. And I remember my mom saying distinctly, like, Chris, go to business school and then you can buy all the clothes you want. And I thought, okay, well, I guess as the good little schoolgirl that I am, I will go and do what my mom tells me. And so I went to business school, and I remember getting the acceptance to work at Citibank, which was my first job, about 2 weeks after I graduated. So as soon as I graduated school, I was like working down in finance already, right after school. And so, get to work, start moving up the corporate ladder. So Citibank in New York City. And then I eventually remember answering an advertisement in the Wall Street Journal for an opening for a portfolio manager at a firm called Alliance Capital at the time, which was a boutique investment banking firm. And I remember going down to Wall Street for the interview, and I have a tattoo on my ankle, I still do, of that I got in college, that I covered up with a band-aid when I was walking in with my suit and my pantyhose and my heels as I went into the interview so that no one would see it. Talk about the first time, or I don't know if it was the first time, but it was definitely a time when I started to fit myself in to another model that probably wasn't aligned for me at the time, and even more so now. So just a hint towards future episodes around fitting into financial models that aren't made for us. Exactly what I was doing. And so I received the job and I climbed the corporate ladder in global portfolio management, big words, meaning finance and trading. And I even had eventually a corner office years in overlooking Central Park. I had made it. Though, as many of us experienced in September of 2001, I was in New York City at the time. I was 27. I was working in Midtown Manhattan at the time and going into my corner office. And I was walking to work with my boyfriend at the time, and we saw this smoke coming out of the Twin Towers all the way straight down Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue, when you look down Fifth Avenue, you would see the Twin Towers south of us. And as a true New Yorker, because we see so much that goes on all the time there, you almost get numb to it. I didn't think much of it. And we all know what happened next. And as it's done for so many people, that changed me. That was my before and after moment. It still is. From an invincible 27-year-old running Manhattan to, wow, I can die at any moment. I really had this come to Jesus moment where I said, what am I doing? Where am I going? What does this all mean? And I really had this urge to follow my heart and follow my curiosity. And ultimately, what it has led me to is my purpose in this money world. And I'll get to that in a sec here, but not knowing all of that at the time and just feeling into like, wow, life is short, so I better get on this. So I pack all my belongings several years later. It took me, that was 2001. I moved out to Colorado in 2005, where I still am. And in the meantime, exploring being a skier. I loved skiing. I grew up skiing with my dad upstate New York. And eventually in the spring of 2005, I decided I was going to move out west. And I moved out to a town called Steamboat Springs, which I still live in Colorado, northwest corner of the state, and just really pulled in that idea of pioneering, mountain air, freedom, just what all the West personifies, and really felt this aliveness and this color come back into my world view. And of course, you think coming from New York City, you have everything there at your fingertips, the city that never sleeps, literally has its own heartbeat, and that I would have been able to feel the pulse of my own self in that city. And I do feel that over the years, I've been here 20 years, that feeling my own heartbeat, feeling my own North Star, feeling into just who I am as a human, as a woman, nature showed me that more than any city would have ever. And of course, without the taxis and the beeping and the sirens and the air conditioners, perhaps, which clouded the voice of mine. And so it began, like, that was my journey. I feel like over the past 20 years, I've gone through many stages of money story and life story in this trajectory of, having love, having joy, having heartbreak, having growth, having sadness, and exploring all that more so day by day continues. All the stages of a life story, all the stages of a money story. I bought a couple of condos. I lost a condo. I had a very lucrative job in a ski town. I lost that job in a ski town, went on unemployment. I had a boyfriend who wasn't super supportive at the time. And that's, all of these things coming together, what I always call the financial perfect storm, is where my money story began again, or at least the fear, the lack, the scarcity. One spring, recognizing I have no job, I have a crappy ass boyfriend, and I'm impending a foreclosure here on one of these condos. And so, real textbook real estate crisis it was in 2010. And I was afraid to look at anything financially, right? And it would have put me in a tailspin. I just remember being so ashamed that I was supposed to be this money expert, and here I am, unemployed, losing my condo, and I literally was falling apart and 2,000 miles away from my people, my family. So, working in finance and then coming out here was a telling story to the whole money journey. And it didn't really matter if I was losing my job, or I was losing a boyfriend, or I was losing the condo. What really mattered to me was, how am I going to get out of this? And so I started to realize that I need to choose. And I never thought I had a choice to choose, but I had to do something different. And that's the phrase that I use often, or the essence of the phrase I use often, where it's like, there's got to be a better way. And you'll probably hear me say that a lot here. And there's got to be a better way with money. There's got to be a better way with men. There's got to be a better way with myself. And went into my own personal development journey with a massive, massive amount of self-love, compassion, honesty, and humility. So going into reviewing all my life, the wheel of life, if you will, and wanting to run away at times, for sure, still do at times, put my head in the sand, particularly around my money story, and then deciding, what, I got to look at this, and choosing to look at it from this idea that there's got to be a better way. I can't just push it away anymore. Just like I'll often share this idea that we're in relationship with this, humans in our lives, and we're also in relationship with different entities in our lives, whether that's money, whether that's our own energy. And it really is an opportunity for us to up level our lives and to actually start to become friends with fear, because it's just as valuable as love and happiness. It's just pointing us in a different direction. And if we actually choose to see it instead of ignoring it, if you're around money, scarcity idea, that we can actually transform it into our greatest power. Messy all around, I get it. And that messiness is actually, there's gold in there. And so that's my invitation to you through sharing my money story, is that I'm still working on it, and it's messy, and it's allowed me to step into more power around my money story. So I'm choosing. And the one thing I know for sure is, and we'll share a lot of that here too, is that the more that you take care of your money as if it's an entity in your life that you want to cultivate, you want to increase, the more it'll start to take care of you in very meaningful and fulfilling ways. And I just remember, as I started to go through my personal development journey around money, as well as other areas of my life, was that I can't be the only woman that's going through this. I can't be the only woman who's experiencing this guilt, shame, isolation around money. And as we know from the beautiful Brené Brown, that shame breeds in isolation. And that is why it's important for us to be able to share our money stories. We all have one. And I want to make this podcast, Made for Money, a place where there is the opportunity for us to share our stories without judgment, without shame. So we actually can step into our own inherent financial freedom, our truest financial freedom, the truest sense of the phrase, that is the power we get to call back. And if you didn't listen, go back to episode 1 where I talked about money and power. When we share our stories, that internal power, that plug into the universe, is the financial freedom we're ultimately looking for. We don't need another spreadsheet. We don't need another budget. We need to actually be sharing our stories, being in circles and rooms where short stories around money are being shared, so that we can actually reconnect to our own power and then choose from there of what the particular strategy or the solution or the decision we need to make out in the 3D world around our actions around money. And that's why I started Rebel Rise Finance. It's to help women, founders and entrepreneurs, business owners tap into their internal power, to step into their financial power, to not necessarily get more things. That's all good. I believe in having access to more discerningly, but to really change things. And this isn't about me and my power and my ability to give you advice on different topics around money. It's around you and my invitation to you to find your own power in here. And I'm just a guide. I'm just holding the flag up front and walking along like the Pied Piper here. And so why women only? I've worked with men, I've worked with teenagers, I've worked with couples. I love women and working with women in this arena because women are, I believe, a very underestimated force in finance. We've been told money is power, and I'm asking, what if we actually decided that money is creative power? It creates, and that we wield that tool very, very cautiously but purposefully. Because when women rise financially, they are rewriting the rules that is needed for the generations that came before them that couldn't do that, and the generations to come. We redirect wealth back into our communities. We start to redefine what success looks like. And we do it on our terms, and we do it for the greater good. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm made for. There's no doubt about it. So we're not looking for outdated models of financial management for our businesses. We're not waiting for some stodgy old accountant to tell us to cut back those expenses. We need to be talking about money in circles where there are others with us, seeing in us and witnessing us in our stories from a place of safety, from a place of non-judgment. That's where the healing is, to actually make really impactful changes and decisions around our money, whether that's in our business or in our personal life. We need real change, and that starts with us telling our story, choosing to do money differently, standing in our financial sovereignty, and asking the questions that need to be asked about money. That's why I was made for money, to ask those questions, to invite you to as well, and share simple financial tips, practices that support us as women. So be sure to follow the podcast to get the short and sweet on money every week, and share with a woman who you know needs a place to share her money story. I'd love to have a community where we get to stand up in our story, reclaim it, messy and all the mess of it all, to actually reclaim our financial freedom and our power. And if you want to share your money story with me to start that financial freedom journey, follow the link in the show notes on how to be a guest on my show. And until next time, remember, you're not here to be chasing money, because you are here and you are made for money already. Bye for now.